Well, welcome back to the Melbourne Strength Culture Podcast, number 1 in the hearts, number 1 in the charts. We have a very special edition today. This is our first traveling podcast in Melbourne, and we thought where better to go than Eugene TEO's gym out west.
This is a gym.
Incredible. I walked in here and I was dumbfounded with this space. This is amazing.
Still am. If you're sussing that wide shot, juice.
Yeah, we normally tell everyone to go to Spotify, which we still want you to do. Go to Spotify. We need to consolidate our top 50 spot. But then once you go to Spotify, give us 5 stars, go to the YouTube channel and watch this one because this is the coolest space we've been in by a mile.
Easy.
This is a visual experience. You've got to take it in.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Eugene.
Pleasure to be here. I'm glad we could do this finally because I know you asked me a while ago and I just sort of snubbed you.
No, you didn't snub us. It was lockdowns. It was 2020.
You were waiting for that top 50 ranking.
Of course.
I must admit though, it's worked out in our favour because we've actually got a much better setup and we've got a bit more direction. You would have been the first guest that we had, and it was before we started taking content properly. So it would have been, you probably would have looked at us and been like, these guys are fucking idiots. They're going, they don't know what they're doing. They're not gonna make it. So I'm glad you snubbed us. We'll take that.
For sure.
We'll take that. But
it wasn't intentional. Like I should put that out there in case everyone's like, man, this Eugene's a real dick. Just started a podcast saying how much he hates these guys. But
Nah, it was all good. So we do appreciate you having us down here and letting us, similar to Luke Lehman, just taking over your gym, your space for a little bit.
For sure.
That's cool. I wanted to say firstly, obviously this is an incredible spot, but it inspired what we've ended up doing a lot with our space. How did this vision come to fruition? Like, where did it all come from? I know you like content. You want to. That's a big, massive part of what your business is and all of that. But how did you get to this? This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is first of all, the idea behind the space in general was just like I need someone to create content because I'd spent so many years since I started running like workshops in like 2014ish or so. It's like what's that? 8 years ago or so, and it was always in other people's gyms. And I remember from the very first one that I did, I remember talking to my videographer at the time, Charles, said, man, this is, it's annoying having to worry about renting a space or worrying about the sound or worrying about other members or whatever, or just obstructions or not having the right equipment. And he said to me back then, man, you should just get your own space. And I was like, yes, I should. And then it was literally, ever since that time, I was like, I need to do whatever I can to get my own space. And since that point, it was like I got this space in 2020, so it was literally 6 years of me trying to find spaces. It would fall through. It just wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen. It's just similar kind of like, I guess, to our podcast in terms of when you guys first messaged me. It didn't happen until the time was really right for it.
Yep. Where
I had a lot of opportunities to be able to have a gym or have a functioning facility maybe back in 2015, 2016. Like I nearly opened up a gym back then. I had the lease ready, had a partner I was working with at the time. And we were like, yeah, let's do this. And then a few things happened where it just fell apart, which we can talk about later because it's always a good time.
Yeah.
Revisiting past traumas. Why not? But yeah, it just didn't happen. And then eventually, after enough frustration, to be honest, of touring around the world, working in so many gyms, and always coming out of a really good experience at a workshop, but saying, man, if only I had this equipment. If only I didn't have to worry about losing my voice because I was trying to scream over the music in the background. If only I didn't have that one member who was just infiltrating and ruining the experience to everybody else, but it's their gym. Like I'm working in a public gym, so I've got to just make ends meet with that. So at that point, it's like I've just got to pull the trigger, and then I eventually found this space. And that was just the pure functionality of like, I need a gym.
Yep.
But the big upside to having so much time, like 5-6 years traveling around being in so many different gyms, is I got to see what equipment do I like, what kind of aesthetic do I like, what do I need in a space, because you walk into a space like this, it's a humongous factory, and that's kind of cool, but how many factories have you been into where you can't hear anything? The sound's reverberating off the walls like crazy, you can't talk properly, the acoustics are bad, or you just get sort of lost in there as well. So I was like, okay, I need a big space, but not too big. And even if I have a relatively big space, I've got to set it up in a way where it's treated in a certain manner where you don't lose as much sound, where you're able to create content comfortably, where it's not going to be too packed in. Like a lot of gyms, really incredible gyms, they're made for members where there's like a billion piece of equipment. I said, I can't do that because I want to be able to get filming angles. I want to make sure I can get a 360 view on every single piece of equipment here. or if I need to, I can move the equipment to another open space as much as I need to. So that was all like the different components coming together. And then I guess the final piece is just the actual aesthetic of it. It was just kind of what I liked.
Yeah.
I was like, I like wood. It's a weird thing to say. You guys are definitely going to cut that out and just use that.
That's
like,
the part.
I like
That's
wood.
the real.
That's the line.
And we'll cut it
Eugene
there.
loves wood.
Thank you for your time today. I know you're a busy guy. We're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, we
and,
just come for those reels.
We got it.
That's it.
we got the one hit, and we're done.
But I thought, I mean, look how many gyms there are where they just have a factory. Like the interior design is, let's paint it black and put one stripe of color
Red.
around the
Yeah.
red or yellow, maybe white.
Yep.
If you want to be really functional, you go blue. You're like, ooh, these guys are a bit more.
These
mellow.
guys are edgy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Body
Left to
fit.
center. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing Body Fit's color scheme there. Eugene likes wood and hates Body Fit. There we go. He said it.
Wrap it up
That's
there,
the
boys.
title.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Done.
Do you want to just move the mic a little bit closer? Just yeah. Oh yeah, that should be good. Yeah.
Got that fist going on. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, because the aesthetic, it definitely inspired us a little bit. We had that same feeling. We were moving to a new space, and there was this huge white wall, and we're thinking, what are we gonna do with this big white wall? And I actually got something similar to this, not quoted, but I started looking into like a full blown like piece on this massive wall, and it was outside the budget. So we went with like a steel framed logo, similar size. I used a lot of what you were doing. The soundproofing on the ceiling, we've done the same thing because content is important to us and all of that. So I just wanted to say thank you for inspiring what we've now created, because you were, and this space specifically was a big push for us to be like, we can take these risks and make things better.
Yeah,
and,
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, you've literally like you shattered a glass ceiling for us, and it goes a layer further than just the space. Like your content, your everything is just, you set it off air, but if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And
Absolutely.
have you got that similar approach to everything else around your business?
Good question. Like, I mean, to say something like that, like if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. I actually don't have that mentality a lot of the time.
Yeah.
More so, like a lot of what I do is just, what am I really interested in? And I won't ever ask myself, hey, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. It's just like, well, if I really care about something, I won't care about the price. I won't care about what it costs. I won't care about the investment. I'll just say, I love this thing. I'll do it. Like a big hobby for me is like guitar, music production. I'll just spend money as I need to. Obviously, so I can afford it, but I will, nothing is too much in that scope. It's like, yeah, I love this. I love doing these things.
Yeah.
It makes me happy. It brings me joy. If you're looking at like a piece of art, if you're looking at a piece of like design or whatever, like if I like this, I want it, like regardless of the price tag. Now, of course, some things are going to be out of my price tag. Like you can't drop 100K on a fucking dining table or something like that. That's kind of absurd. But there are levels to it. There's a point where you say, like, if this brings me joy, what else am I going to do? You know, what else am I going to spend money on? Like I might as well go into that because it brings me joy and brings me happiness. And that can be like from, art, design. It could be from hobbies like music, or it could just be something like content creation, where it's like professional, like, hey, I enjoy creating content. What do I need to be able to make it as exceptional as possible where I would want to consume it or I'm going to be happy with it? And like I'd done a lot of years doing it on my iPhone, doing it on just in a basic camera in a basic gym, and that works really well and I enjoy that. But I was like, how do I take it a little bit further, just to make myself more proud of it?
For sure.
With that. Yeah.
I may have the wrong person here, but you just bought a new guitar, didn't you? Or recently?
Yeah.
And you went into the shop, and I'm assuming that was it. You were like, oh, it's so expensive. But then you came home and you're like, but I enjoy guitar. I'm going to go and fucking buy that guitar. And you just went back.
Exactly right. I mean, it cost more than my car, but it was like,
What guitar is it?
it's a Loudon. So it's this, Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran. So he's
No, I don't know him. I'm not sure who that is. Yeah. Sorry,
Most people know Ed Sheeran, and that's the guitar that he plays. Like not that exact one, but that's the brand that he's well associated with. Like he has his own signature series through this brand. But the owner is this guy George Loudon. I think he's from Ireland, I'm guessing, or somewhere out there. And he just makes really beautiful instruments. Now the thing is, this guitar store, because it's hard to get these guitars, because most guitar stores don't buy a billion of the one guitar. They'll buy one or two at a time, especially for you boutique brands like this. And they had this guitar here, and I was like, that's great. It really just fits nicely. It's so comfortable. And the one issue was, So this guitar was a custom-made job for some random dude who was actually selling it. So it was secondhand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was selling it back to the store to then like on consignment so they can sell it to whoever they want. But this guy, he asked for it specifically to be made of Brazilian rosewood, which for the musicians out there, they'll know how rare and how expensive Brazilian rosewood is. Not necessarily for its tonal qualities or its playability, but just because it's been banned from production and maybe like 50 odd years ago. So it's like an extinct piece of material that you had to have bought it maybe 50, 60 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Before it got outlawed. So I was at this dilemma, like, hang on, this guitar, it's worth much more because of the wood in it.
The material.
If it was the exact same Loudon guitar, but he just used Indian rosewood, not Brazilian rosewood, it would still sound and feel exactly the same. But man, I want this guitar because I want it now. I got the impulse.
I've got the impulse. Don't worry about that.
And it was comfortable. I was like, oh, they're not going to get what I could get the cheaper model in for maybe 6 months to a year. And I thought, am I going to want to, and I know I wanted a guitar. Like at that period, I needed an acoustic guitar for my recording, just my own playing. And I said, am I going to want to spend another year waiting for something? Or could I make it a bit of a stretch and make ends meet to make it happen? I thought, yeah, I could. It's going to make me happier to do it. So I did that.
For sure.
So yeah, now I'm just never touching it because you don't ever want to let any of your sweat go on it.
Brazilian rosewood.
No, none of that. No one touches it. It's in the air-locked capsule.
So how often will you play it then?
Special occasions.
Oh, never. No. I'll play it a few times a week normally. Yeah. Like I haven't played guitar now for about a month, which is annoying because I've just been pulled thin with a lot of other projects. But usually a few times a week. Yeah.
Didier's a guitar, man.
That specific guitar you'll play?
That specific guitar.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, because if you were spending all that money on it and it was going to bring you joy and then it's just sitting in the cabinet, I'd be like, oh man, what are you doing? But you're actually going to play it, it's probably worth it in the end.
Absolutely.
What songs do you play?
I play a lot of everything. Like it's a really weird, because you're the guitarist, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah.
Okay. So
Charles doubles.
Yeah, me and Charlie.
Charlie, who's not here, unfortunately, he's sick.
Right.
But
now this is not a dig, but
it's a dig.
It's a dig. It's a dig. You can always tell when a non-musician is asking you about your music because they say, oh, what kind of music do you play?
Oh, fuck.
Jamie's been
creative.
And
guy.
honestly, it's genuine curiosity. Like I want to know from you, like, hey, what do you play? But I also know intrinsically as a musician that there are so many different styles or things that inspire you or moods. And like, I'm for sure there's going to be a genre. Like you say, I like rock. But what kind of rock is that? Do you like some really hardcore metal? What kind of metal?
Yeah,
like gents. Do you like something really heavy?
When people throw out, because when people ask me what my favorite genre is, I say classic rock, and then a song will come on. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, it's a bit of classic rock. I'm like, man, that's actually not classic rock. Like, you don't understand, man.
Right, we had a big genre discussion not long ago when I'm gonna throw him under. Old mate thought Will Smith was the greatest of all time in hip hop.
I never say greatest of all time of hip hop.
You said he's a goat.
Can we just touch on Will Smith quickly? What a fall from grace!
Yeah, and how good was the timing?
The timing.
As well?
I brought that post out about a week before it all just blew up, and I was like, man, this audio book has been fantastic. I really appreciate Will Smith
and his music.
And then it's just wow. I know this is off topic, but holy shit, what a fall!
See, Amy
I couldn't finish his book.
Were you listening to it?
I was reading it. Yeah, same thing. Isn't
were you? Were you reading it before and after?
Yeah, before
like
and then
throughout.
Even before the whole Oscar thing, I just kind of lost interest in it. Yeah, which is weird because I've been a big like Will Smith fan, and because he's the golden boy or whatever.
For sure.
But then I think it wasn't obviously it wasn't the Oscars thing because it was well before then. But just knowing what's been going on through his personal life, you can't help but have it affect your perspective as you're reading a lot of his stories. And it's like, man, I really just can't get behind this anymore. And then of course after that, at that point, I was like, yeah, I just can't get behind this anymore. Yeah. It's like whether you agree with what he did or didn't agree with what he did, because there's two sides to every story, blah, blah, blah. I was like, man, just for me personally, I just couldn't finish it.
Yeah. Well, the last chapter is him I'm just going to, if you haven't listened to
Spoiler
it, bad
alert.
luck. Spoiler alert to Will Smith's books. His last like 2 chapters is just him and ayahuasca and how he's changed and how he's evolved and all of this. Like he's found peace and he's found. And
He
then,
hasn't.
But he hasn't.
More tolerant.
Because then one joke, quote unquote joke,
Yeah.
and he goes and walks and goes through this process and just hits a man on like I'm like, you haven't found anything. Like it's just
Sure.
like. And Charlie, what did Charlie say? Puz in the car. He was like,
I don't remember.
he was like, Will Smith like let him down. He's like he felt hurt.
Yeah.
He's felt hurt.
Yeah,
from Will Smith.
I would say I felt let down.
let down. Yeah.
Big Fresh Prince fan, but safe to say I won't be getting jiggy with it anymore.
But that's cool. The guitar, it's just an extrapolation of the whole thing, which I think it's amazing, and we take a lot of inspiration from it. So keep going, please. Continue with that. It's
There is
unreal.
something I did want to ask on that. It seems you're a man of culture. Well, hobbies. Guitar. you look to cook as well, and you're in fitness, and I know you're a big fan of the culinary arts, and it's something that I see in fitness as well with a lot of people is they almost like mega attach their identity to gym and gym standalone. And you've been doing this for a while now, whether it be training, whether it be producing content. Do you think that fostering creativity and other things has allowed you to keep doing this and what you're doing here to a higher standard, or has allowed you to maintain your love for this a lot more because you've got so much outside of here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, honestly, it's both. That's a really, really good question that you don't really think about much, but a lot of people, whether they're professionally in this industry or just like training to win a competition or whatever, whether it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, because I was in those worlds, people really, tie their identity to just saying, this is who I am. I'm a powerlifter, I'm a bodybuilder. And like I was a bodybuilder many years ago, and I struggled for a short period of time with trying to get myself out of that mindset and pivoting into what I do now. But yeah, I'd say that's a huge part of it is the more other areas you have in your life to fulfill you, the less you'll have to go all in on one thing, which, is kind of, there's 2 sides to that. So people are going to be like, hey, if you want to excel, you got to double down on what it is that you want to do.
No backup plan.
And like no plan B, just go all in. And I think, just thinking out loud now, that kind of advice is really good advice to a certain point. And like if you're just starting out in your early 20s or whatever, you're just saying, I don't know what I really want to do. I just want to dabble a little bit. If you want to start to get exceptional at something in those early years, you've really just got to obsess. Like I think it was Dave Grohl who mentioned in his recent book that came out, he was talking about like when the most formative years are for you as a musician or whatever. And he said, probably like around 11 years old. That's when you've got this decision, this subconscious decision where you're going to say, am I going to be an exceptional musician? Am I going to be something else? And for him, it was like he just started going all in on drums and music and everything. That's all he cared about, because that's when you can really obsess. That's when you can really just put in the time, hours, and accrue a lot of that time. But then eventually you've got to get to a point where that obsession can really kill you, can really take away from you. And then you've got to be able to learn how to draw from other modalities. Whether it's like, let's say it was a pure gym thing, let's say I identified as a gym goer, that may be me no longer doing bodybuilding, but doing powerlifting or Olympic lifting or calisthenics or CrossFit or some kind of sports performance thing instead. And that would be enough to help me improve as a coach. But it could also just be, doing something completely different and going to like cooking or music or whatever it is, whether it's just for a mental relaxation or it's to learn something else that you'll randomly find ties in and helps you in some way with whatever it is that you're you really care about the most. So yeah, it's really and I think a lot of people are missing that. A lot of people get stuck when they say, I'm going to obsess with this or identify with this, and they don't know how to identify with anything else. And I think that's where people get very triggered.
Oh, without a doubt.
They get triggered. It's a very dangerous
When
world to be in.
when it's wrapped up in identities, like if I think it happened in response to a recent podcast, we didn't like have a go at, but we were just discussing some ideas around like PRI and these different schools of thought, and then someone just came in all guns blazing because if it's as if like Jamie had taken a tack to something that's so close to, but they were reading it completely wrong, but it's almost like they're being insulted if there's a slight suggestion that maybe there's some instances where we don't need to consider these ideas, and it's just like, a blow to the heart. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I find, and we say it as well, and I've experienced it. It's like what happens when shit goes wrong. You know, when you're so tied in with you. I am a power lifter, and if shit goes wrong, I feel like that's when you see everything else crumble. You know what I mean? Like if that's all you've got and that's crumbling, and that's what we see. It's like they've obsessed so much in the beginning phase, and they've killed it, and they're starting to break through into the intermediates, and then it's like that obsession has actually served you in the short term to break through, and it's like once you're in this period where it's not going to be like this anymore, and you see the ebbs and flows, it's I feel like that's where it starts to really come into it. It's like you know, if it's not going right here, it's probably better you've got some other things going on external to it. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I mean, a big mistake people have is they don't realize that what got you from A to B won't get you from B to C. It's like, benching 3 days a week got me to 100 kilos. Will that get you to 200 kilos? Will it get you beyond that? Probably not. You probably need to rework things. But they're like, oh, it worked for me. It worked so well. And then you're arguing not on the basis of proper programming or just understanding experience. You're now arguing with their identity of this is what happened. I did this 3 days a week and I blew up. Like, well, maybe you don't know what you don't know.
I think a very similar example there is when people use a certain kind of diet to lose weight, and it did work for them. Yeah. And then they come back again and they're trying that again and it's not working, and you try and offer, reasons why they might need to alter the way they're going about it. But they're just so sure that previous thing that they did see success with is the answer, but it's like, it's not. Like there's different ways we can go about it. So maybe it was a good answer for you at that time in your life because of the context of everything that was going on around you, but you're a different person now. You're in a different place. There's different people around you. So maybe we've got to attack this a different way. Yeah.
For sure. How would you go about, helping that person switch gears?
Well, it's difficult. I think you have to add sprinkles. Like just coming guns blazing and just telling them, no, you are wrong, is obviously not going to be the answer for the most part. I think, you just got to add little bits of suggestions here or there, slightly start to steer that ship in the direction you want them to
Play
go.
the long game.
That's it.
The long game.
Sure.
The long game always wins.
I like sprinkles.
Sprinkles.
Yeah, I like that.
Hundreds of thousands.
The chef.
Speaking of the long game, you said you've been this seminar sort of progression and how we ended up in this space. Somebody that we did want to bring up is John Meadows, because we've heard the story that you sort of flew him out initially to Australia. Obviously, rest in peace, John. He was a big impact on a lot of individuals, yourself, obviously, but many people in the not just bodybuilding space, but gym in general.
Fitness.
Yeah, he's left a big mark and a great mark. But can you talk us through that? Like, it seems like such a big roll of the dice. My understanding was you just DM'd him or something and you're like, hey, man, can I fly you out to Australia? Is that how it went?
Yeah, pretty much. So I'd been following his work for a while, and I just thought I'll just send him. And this is before DMs. This is like email. Yeah, I just found his email. It was. Well, his email is @live.com, so it's pretty much a Hotmail.
Yeah.
It's always funny when you have a @Hotmail or whatever.
What was your first email? What was your first email address?
It's actually really boring because it was made by my dad. He gave us all Hotmail accounts or whatever. So I don't remember. It incorporated my Asian name. So my middle name is Tiong-Jin. Yeah. So it had a TJ in there for Tiong-Jin. It was really boring and bland. And then what was it beyond that? Oh, okay. So in high school, I had one called, and I've got to explain it because it's going to be like, the fuck? It was ref_Quinnet. Now, okay, back up. Story time. When I was in primary school, I was never really a cool kid, right? I was kind of cool, but not that cool. Yeah. Like, you know your place, kid. Yeah. You're a short Asian kid. Go back in the club. Anyway, in grade 6, it was my time to shine. Yeah. So I'm sitting there in this new class. I got my bunch of nerdy friends next to me, and then the cool kids come over. I'm like, is this really happening? This is amazing.
They're going to talk to us.
I know, yeah. They sit down and like, oh, what's all this stuff you got? Because I had my desk all neatly organized like a good little kid. Yeah. And they go, oh, what's your name? I'm like, I want to know my name. I go, I'm Eugene. Yeah. And they go, oh, for some reason they heard Eugene as like refugee.
What?
And none of us picked up on the racism of it. Because, you know, you're innocent. You're like 10 years old. You don't know.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, ref. Like, you're refugee.
And that was your nickname.
That was it. And I was like, this is amazing.
wow.
This is it.
That's one of the most clever like bully names. I copped
I
Fat
know.
Wog.
Yeah, that's simple.
That was mine.
That's great. I mean, I'm not sure if I was being bullied or not, because then we were all hanging out. Like, we were friends. Like, all of us were this big group of friends. I think it was all swell.
One of my nicknames was Curly Cunt because I had curly hair.
Yeah, you really can't look too
Kids,
deep
man.
into these
Kids.
cute kidsy nicknames.
Before we go back to the John Meadows story, what was your first email?
Yeah, so backtrack to talking about tying your identity up in things. I was kickboxer_47 at hotmail.com.
Where'd 47 come from?
Yeah,
Is there a
what's that?
certain...
Yeah, he was the
like the number.
47.
Oh, right. So it's all I
Yeah.
gave you just as the...
It's just,
Try
yeah.
this instead.
No, I like that number. I was like, I'm doing 47.
47.
I had two Hotmails in primary school. One's was dids_is_happy, and one was dids_is_cool. So I had a couple
Nice.
phases there. Yeah.
Had a burner account. I love it. I love it. DMs on the burner account.
You gotta.
Yeah, all the spam. Send it to cool.
Yeah, the cool was when he was trying to slide in.
I tell you what would be the best was when you're on a phone with someone and you're like, oh, what email have you got for me? And they say it back to you and like, yeah, no, the other one, dids_is_cool. So yeah, you email John.
Yeah, I mean, that was it. Like,
From the refugee account.
of course. Yeah. No, so actually, even prior to that, the one that people don't know about, 'cause I talk about John a lot, the one that I don't / kind of can't talk about as much is Tom Platz. So I brought him out the year prior.
Really?
Yeah, I brought him out in 2013 or 2014. And same deal. I emailed him saying, hey, would you like to come out? I'm a big fan of your work. Because what it was I'd seen John and him training together. And I was like, shit, he's still around doing stuff. Because I knew like he was still alive, obviously, but I figured just like most of the bodybuilders at the time, they just sort of just got forgotten and disappeared. Yeah. But I thought like Tom Platz I was the biggest fan of his.
Absolutely.
Like he's out of all the bodybuilders, I didn't care about Arnie, I didn't care even about Franco or any. Like I cared about Tom Platz because he took things to another level of absurdity. Just like, yeah, just the way he looked, the way he trained, the way he spoke. I was like, this is a very different class of gentleman. So when I saw that he was still around, he was training John, I thought, I'll email him. So I don't even know how I found his email because that was a harder find. A bit more like maybe page 3 on Google, which you never go to. Never go that deep. But I found that. I emailed him, hey, do you want to come out? And he was like, yeah, sure. I was like, okay.
So how did this work? You just pay for them to come out? You're doing seminars?
Yeah,
What's the arrangement?
It's very simple. People think that a lot goes into this whole event planning thing. I mean, it depends on the level. Like if I'm going to bring out some, I don't know, musician, some big rock star, there's a bit more to it, you know? Yeah. And if I've got to hire out the music bowl, that's a bit different to me just asking Tony Doherty, hey, can Tom come here for a couple of days and just lift some weights? That's a bit different. Yeah. But yeah, so I said to Tom, hey, do you want to come in? I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. Organize whatever you want. Here's my rate. I think from memory, it was surprisingly affordable. It was something like $5,000 or so to come out for the trip, plus some flights. Wasn't even business class flights. It was just regular flights to him and his wife. Awesome.
One for each quad?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
3 sets.
So I brought him and his wife out and just had to find a location, which was just, Doherty's in Brunswick. And that was pretty much it. Then I'd just worry about finding enough people to sell it and just put up some random website where people can just go purchase things and just using like a PayPal or whatever. And that was literally it. Simple. So that went ahead. That was, a pretty good experience. I was like, okay, I got some confidence now. I want to do it again. So I messaged, who's the next person I want to bring out? And it was John. Yeah. Like I said, John was the first one, but I just saw him as like this.
Unattainable.
Yeah. So I thought, like, I've got a bit of confidence now. I'm going to email the guy. And same deal, he was just like, yeah, sure. Like, he'd never been I don't think he'd ever been out of the country.
Really? At
the point. And I was like, you're trusting this. I think I was like 22 at the time. You're trusting this kid, this refugee at Hotmail. You're trusting this kid with using a burner account who's asking you to come out.
It almost sounds like the African prince with all the money. I'm a refugee from Australia. I want to fly you out. Come and speak to my people.
I'll pay for you or whatever. I remember he told me later what happened was, like, he was kind of like, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but, the kid seems like a good kid. Well, we'd spoken on Skype after that. So he knew, like,
AOL.
Yeah, so he knew that it was kind of legitimate. we knew, at least knew that I was a real person. We thought it would never happen. And then he was like, and he told me, but then, yeah, the money appeared in my account. So I knew you were legit. I was like, there you go. I mean, I couldn't afford to do it. I had to find that money somehow to make it happen. Because, yeah, it was just a stressful period. But it just all went ahead. And same deal, just like got to find a gym and sell tickets to it. And at the time, I mean, even now, like he's a popular guy. But back then, this is 2014 or so, people aren't coming out regularly. Seminars aren't a big deal.
Yeah.
And in the whole training space, people are willing to spend a lot more on education back then. I found since then a big decline. As it's become more saturated with people running events. Really? Yeah. I find people just don't have, like, back for John Meadows, it was like $2,000 to go along to his events. For Tom Platz, it was something like maybe, $1,700 to $2,000 or so. And it was like maybe 3 days or so.
I was going to say that would have been like a full weekend or something.
Yeah, it wasn't just like a half-day thing. It was a substantial event. But I remember even, Charles Poliquin would charge similar amounts to run his events. It'd be $2,000, but he'd get like 50, 60 people in for his biosigs or whatever. But his hypertrophy camps, he'd charge like $3,000 or $4,000. But they're the small exceptions. They're the small exceptions who are really marketing to a very select number of coaches. And most of the people they market to have already been to their course several times. So they're already very hot leads who are going to buy whatever you sell. But for the most part now, the industry is so different for education.
Well, I feel like you'd be somebody that would have a really good take on this. Obviously, as technology moves forward, you're even with your own app, and as you said, education becomes more readily available. We have a lot of these YouTube, like a Jeff Nippard YouTube channel, where you're literally getting the top of the top education for free every week. It just drops. It's in a very creative, digestible manner. It's made for people that are more in the entry level, intermediate to understand. Do you think that all of that has built into the evolution of the education side of the industry, where it's just going to continue to move in that direction? Like,
for sure.
How much of your app is education or training? Like, if you had to split it, how would your app be?
So when I first launched it 4 years ago, it was 100% education. Yep. It was like, here is me giving a lecture on sleep. Here is me giving a lecture on circadian rhythms or on breathing or biomechanics. That was it. And then I started to notice that was great. People wanted that, but then I could see that it was changing over time, where that starts to lose its power and effectiveness, and also just its engagement with people when it's so readily accessible to find a lot of this stuff. And I was like, well, I just want to share this stuff as well. So that's why I pivoted more towards the training and the coaching side of things via the app instead, where people can go there and still get the education. There's still the exact same education stuff, even like I've updated it since then, but the same amount of content, if not more. But I've just added in a whole bunch of training and accountability and all the nutrition side of it as well. Because I realized that, like I'm giving 90% of this stuff away for free anyway, education-wise. So why bother? Like, why bother charging for it? I've got to make the platform. So I sort of self-cannibalize myself. I'm making more free content. I was like, well, the paid platform's kind of relevant. What do I need? What do people actually want more? They don't want to pay for the education. I mean, they do, but at some point, it's like, well, it's kind of... It can't
be the only piece to the puzzle.
No. Yeah. It's, and I said, well, if you're going to pay for education, there are better places you can go to pay. Like, you probably go to some high-level university course to learn this kind of stuff if you really care about it. Whereas at the level that most of us talk and teach at, it's like, well, you can find a lot of that if you know where to look on YouTube, or if you really know who to ask coaching-wise. Even some of the detailed exercise phys stuff. Like, I taught myself all the exercise phys, anatomy, physiology. I taught myself all that using Khan Academy on YouTube. Using Crash Course on YouTube. They go in such great detail into university-level lecturing. And you can find whatever you need to understand an exercise phys or anatomy. You can find it to university level on YouTube. So it's kind of like, oh, what do people really care about now?
Have you found that since pivoting, you even said accountability, it'd be interesting to see how you've got that involved in the app, but have you found since that pivot, have you seen a better retention of like a purchaser or more engagement in that front? Like, have you seen that evolve alongside the growth of the app?
For sure, because if you're really invested in somebody's training and keeping them accountable and creating a community, you're no longer seeing them just as a customer. Like, they become your people. It's like your clients in the gym. They're your people. Cool. Whereas kind of like, and you can make the same case for training platforms as well, but on the education side, it's like, here's the course, go do it. and there's not really much interaction. Someone might ask you a little bit of a question here and there, but they can just sort of do what they want with it more than anything else. Whereas when you get involved in somebody's training and their journey and you're helping them out on a relatively regular basis, whether it's weekly or daily or monthly or whatever, if you have that community, like they're now your people and they're going to stick with you and they're going to want to grow with you. Education, it can very easily be seen as, I've done that course, what's next?
It's very transactional. You go in,
for sure.
8 weeks is done. All right, I'm moving on.
I've got my certificate. I'm going to go do PRI next. I'm going to go do my level 1 this, level 2 that.
Yep.
Great. What's the next one you got to offer me? Maybe like the really hardcore students would be like, hey, what else can you give me? Can you give me mentoring now? Can you give me level 3? Can you give me the platinum package? But then it's like, well, maybe not. Do you want to be doing that? But then it's like, what's going to give you the real retention is, pivoting away and going to like, what do people really care about? They care about the community. They care about being treated like people.
Have you struggled to build that community through technology, or do you feel like?
No, I never really considered it much. This is the kind of thing where people think I have a really grand master plan with what I do, and I don't. I have zero plan. I just sort of just fumble along the way and just see what works out. And I've been very fortunate where I've been able to just take risks with things and just not have to worry about it so much. I'm like, I'll just see if it pays off or not. But yeah, I never really got too worried about that aspect. And it just sort of organically happened on its own, where I'm sure some people will be like, oh, it's harder to connect when you're not in person with them. I don't know, but there's two sides to it. Is like being online, you have so many more people, and people have the distance of not being face to face, which a lot of people love. A lot of people, they don't want to be interacting with you face to face. They want to be behind a screen, keyboard warrior style, not being a warrior but being a community person.
They find it easier to engage.
Yeah,
I think I'd probably, the boys would be better. I don't do much coaching anymore, but I find that even with online clients, sometimes you actually get more out of them. As like they'd be at the gym and you'd think that, all right, if they transition to online and online service and they leave the gym for whatever reason, that you'd think, oh, there'd be less communication. Sometimes it actually elevates and the whole thing grows and evolves in a better direction.
There's even some people who train at our gym all their sessions, but they, for whatever reason, they'll go in depth via email, but in person you'll get nothing out of them. They get their benefit that way, and that's how they feel comfortable to open up. Versus, not everyone wants to have a chat to you in person on the gym floor. Yeah.
Absolutely, and like I'm sure there are many people who come onto Ganbaru and they're like, oh, I wish there was that in person. Things like, well, I can't help you.
Which is not what you offer. Yeah,
and that's fine. That's fine.
It's not your sphere. I would also imagine that. You've taken a similar approach then. So now with the clothing line, and obviously it's got the same name, and the gym here, it's even got the symbols and all that. It's all becomes like a universe. But that's just another layer in which people can become part of what you're building.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is that where the name Ganbaru culture sort of is that all pieced in with that?
Is like at first I was like, oh, what am I going to call it? I knew I wanted to use Ganbaru in it in some way, but I thought like Ganbaru clothing, hey, that works. Ganbaru apparel, that works too. But then I thought, well, is clothing really enough? Is that really the kind of message that you want to send with this brand? And it wasn't. It's kind of limiting just to tie yourself down just to clothing or just to apparel, just to gym clothing or accessories. Well, I don't want this brand to just be another clothing label, because then like I don't love clothing that much. Like I wear the same t-shirt 6 times over and over and over and over again. I don't have a lot of stuff. Like I'm not one who's into fashion or shoes and whatever else. I'm a very simple kind of person. So I thought, well, what is it that clothing allows me to do? Or what is it that I can sort of bring in terms of inspirations into the brand that happens to make clothing right now? Yep. Okay, so culture is more encompassing of where the brand could go. Because I think it will be, like clothing will be a heavy part of it for a very, very, very long time, if not forever. But there's no reason why it couldn't pivot off into a design company or into some kind of just other cultural pursuit in general that all have these influences that can be displayed in the clothing.
Yeah, it's like a Venn diagram. It's a big, it's a big, and as somebody, I really I find myself with that, with the whole fumbling. You're just fumbling through this process of building. And I'd go with the boys, like you pick up these people around you and you're like, all right, they're now in this process and we're all just sort of rolling around and evolving. And I really like having that sort of more open. It's almost just like a field in front of you. Which way are we going to go? Where are we moving, boys?
Yeah, like
Absolutely.
six months ago, we probably wouldn't have thought we'd be bringing a full studio across
Well, we were
the
still
outside
in
Melbourne,
that. We were still trying to get you out, but then you fucking dogged us. Come and train at the gym or whatever, which is cool. I also saw on the weekend that you hold private events here as well. So
Yeah,
is that another part of this whole space? Yeah.
That was the first goal of this space. Like the reason why, like back when I acquired the gym and started getting equipment, I was still on tour. Like I remember I got the space when I was in Denmark. Mum called me and was like, "Oh yeah, they accepted your offer." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Oh, nice.
Like I haven't seen the place. Hope it works out. I've just seen photos and the walkthrough video that she did for me. Like I hope it's okay. But I was very heavily into the touring and the workshops, and I knew that I'd be creating content from a home hub at some point. But I still thought that my biggest thing would be traveling education and doing a lot of workshops. So I built this space for that. So like I've got 2 lat pull downs here, for instance. It's just me who trains here. Like I don't need 2. I don't need 2. I've got a few pieces of kit here that I never touch, but I literally have them because I want to teach with them. I want to be able to show off this equipment or what's bad about this equipment or what's good about this. That was it. So yeah, that was a big thing that I wanted to do. But then obviously the last couple of years have happened and it's just sort of went away from that. And then just recently, literally the other day, like literally a month ago, Cheryl says to me, she's like, "Hey Eugene, who would you go to learn about program design or physiology or whatever?" And I thought, look, there's a few different people that I could recommend. But I said, look, I don't know when their next intake is, or I don't know when, like, if you're going to be able to keep up with what they're doing, whatever. I said, look, I can teach you all this stuff. Like, I used to teach all the physiology, the biochemistry, everything. I taught it years ago, and you were meant to come to one of those courses, but then you didn't. I said, look, I'll do it for you. It's fine. It's no issue. I can happy to teach it. And then the more I thought about it after that, I thought, well, it's best to teach this kind of stuff when you can not just learn the physiology of energy production or the Krebs cycle. If you actually see it in action in training, if you can see what happens when somebody has to shift over to like more anaerobic metabolism or whatever, that makes the lessons much more tangible to you and more memorable. So I thought, well, okay, let's make it an actual workshop. And it's better if it's done not just with one person for you, sure, but bring your whole team in, bring your crew down. And then I just started realizing, I guess you're going back into the education space again.
Yeah.
Like again, I didn't say I want to do this now because I knew that I've done it in the past, but it wasn't a decision for me to say, yes, this is what I'm going to do and where I'm going to be at. It just sort of happened from that one prompt. And then I thought, look, if I'm going to do this, maybe I'll do it for Cheryl, and then I'll use that as like a warm-up pre-game thing, and then I'll do a couple of my own events, like my own like bigger open to public events that aren't commissioned.
Yeah.
And that was it. So then, about a bit less than a month ago, I thought I'll open that up. And then, they just sold out. So like, great, awesome. Like, I knew demand would be there because people have wanted that for me for a while and they haven't been able to because of everything that's going on in the world. So that's happening next week. I have my first public event, which is exciting, in this space. And then I'm off to Canada.
So that will be the first public one you've done here?
Yeah.
Because of COVID?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Which is really exciting because, I've forgotten how much I enjoyed teaching.
Yeah.
Where, like we were just talking about identity before, I was so heavily, like my identity was you're an educator, you're someone who travels, you're someone who engages with people, and then that got taken away in a sense. But it never seemed like a loss to me. Because to me, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to do the Ganbaru app now. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to have other ways to connect with people. I'm going to focus more on life outside of my professional development as well. Because like for the last 2 years has been very much focusing on me time. Yeah. I've been able to just pivot away from having to be so workaholic and always thinking about content and working is now so just relaxing and spending more time with my family, relationships, all that kind of stuff.
Looking at that guitar?
Yeah,
just looking at
guitar,
it?
just staring at it. Don't touch it. It's still in that vacuum sealed chamber. Okay, you can't go in there.
Observing.
Yeah, just observing it. But being able to do those things has been what I've been more identifying with, I guess. So I never missed the teaching side. I thought, it's coming back around. So I'm curious to see what happens.
I reckon that fire is
going
to get lit again, though.
I don't know. Like I got pretty heavily burned out.
Oh,
on
really?
The last tour.
Yeah.
Like that was like 10 months straight on the road. That was fucked.
Well, this is. I know you've had obviously you're close with Jordan, or you've had him in here and been on the podcast. He came and did a seminar at our gym once with Luke Tulloch. They sort of did a combined one, and they used
systems and synergy.
Yeah, they used our gym for the day 3 or 2. One of them. It was a big weekend, and at the end, I was like, man, I look up to you because you're able to do all of this stuff non-stop, this travel, this sort of live out of the suitcase. And he was like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, I'm a bit of a special person that can, like, handle it and keep going with it. Like, he just sort of... So it's interesting to say, like, you felt that burnout. Because it'd be challenging. For sure it would. But also, I find, looking from the outside, surely it's exciting.
It's exciting.
Or it just becomes
10
work.
months is a long time.
Yeah, it just becomes
It's a very long time.
Where were you traveling? Where were you traveling through that?
Everywhere, everywhere. So, like, I remember that tour, I think... I did a whole Australia tour. That was about 10 cities, 10 dates. And then I would have gone from there. I would have started to head west. I try to avoid flying east because that fucks you with jet lag. So I try to do like around the world.
This is a seasoned traveller here.
Yeah, I've learned.
Tips.
The first time.
What way are you flying that plane?
Yeah.
East? Nah. Fuck yeah.
Get out. But yeah, I think I would have gone like Singapore or Dubai, and then I would have gone a few spots through Europe. I remember I planned a lot of the European dates around wanting to be in Portugal for a Tool concert. That was my thing. I was like, I got to be here in Portugal, in Lisbon in May or June, whenever it was. I was like, I can piece everything else around that. As long as I'm there for that, great. How can I get there? What's in the lead up to that? And that was it. But yeah, it was all through Europe, all through UK, Asia, and then the States as well. So there's just a lot of places, and then there were a lot of places I was meant to go to as well. That just didn't end up happening because of COVID. But that's kind of like where I sort of felt I left things on unfinished business. But yeah, it's as much as like I can tell you in the moment, you don't feel it as much. You're like, yeah, this is great. I'm on the road, I'm traveling, it's fun. It's the moment that you stop, you realize just how taxing it's been on your body and how much you haven't been able to do other things, because life on the road is really, really, really challenging. Just from like everything else kind of in a way stands still, where like your business thrives, but your life at home doesn't really go anywhere. And you sort of feel like, oh, I can't do this for the rest of my life. Is this really what I really want? And I would relate a lot to either talking with a lot of musicians or reading a lot of different musicians' memoirs and biographies, where they're like, yeah, like they'd be similar, where they're spending a long time on the road, on several months, close to a year on tour, and they just find it's exciting. It's a rush. It's awesome. But eventually you realize that it is work. Even if you do love that work, it still is work, and it still is take away from your body and your resources and whatever else that you might want to be doing as well.
The opportunity cost of
yeah, for sure.
Can't develop other areas of life.
Yeah. So I definitely want to do it again. I can't wait to get back out there. But I know that this time
maybe not at that level.
Yeah, I'll do
or
a couple of
length.
months at most. It'd be more like a month away, come back again, chill out again, go again. Because I mean, back then a big thing was like I wanted to try to just economize on my time, economize on my on the cost as well, having to go out back and forth all the time. Whereas now I value things a bit differently. Like I valued money a lot back then, which I mean I still do value, but I'm not going to be just wasting everything. But like I do a round the world trip to try to save on the return flights back and forth. I'd go for 10 months because it's cheaper than going several times a year. But now I still value money, but I'm like, well, does it make a difference if I have 10K or 100K or $1 million in the bank? Not really that much of a difference. As long as I can afford to pay my bills, which I don't really have high living expenses or costs. As long as I can afford them, what does it matter? And spending that extra 10K on the back and forth trip or whatever, or doing multiple trips a year, that means I get more time, which is what we really care about. I get to spend more time at home. I get to spend more time with my family or whatever else it is. That's more valuable than saving the money I might have spent on the extra flight.
For sure.
Yeah.
The final piece that I would like to discuss for myself, obviously, because I feel like, especially in Australia, there's not many that have been able to. We were discussing on the way here, like, I use the term like break the mold of what the industry sort of pockets you as a trainer or a coach or whatever it is. At what point did you feel that you could really make this other side of like, whether it's content, this is more like a very selfish selfish question, but this other side of the world of training, like this content, this, like I saw a post, I saw a post the other week where someone's like, oh, when did your social media take off? And you're like, man, I've been posting since 2013 or whatever it was. Like it's just been this long, slow burn. Like when did you feel that this other world of being a coach or a trainer or in this industry, you could just be like, this is it. I can really run with this now and build this thing up. Was it the traveling? Was it the tours? Was it like, when did that shift? Or can you?
Yeah,
because I just look at what you do and I'm like, this is fucking sick. Like, it's so cool. Like even just this space, like we joke that we'd love to get to a point where our majority of our coaching, and we're definitely moving in that direction, is online. So our space can become like this, like similar to what you've done here. Like this is just fucking cool. And then like your app and I even look at that, I'm like, man, this app and this community that you've built, like everything that you've done is just like different.
On another level.
Yeah, it's just different to what people would expect from health and fitness or strength training or personal training. But it's just this fucking cool evolution of, obviously it's just you. Yeah. But like, how the fuck did you do this?
Yeah, the way we phrased it was transcending.
Transcending is a word,
right?
We actually we jokingly said you've transcended the gym floor. Like that's sort of where we landed.
Don't give me too big an ego, guys. Come on.
Like it's you, Sebastian Oreb, Luke Tulloch, maybe even, like he's done some really cool things in like the online space. And I'm sure there's others, but they're the ones that are in my. But you've just built a fucking cool thing. Like, when did this happen? How did this happen?
Sure.
Was it ever an idea to be like, I can roll it this way and go that way, or you just enjoyed making content and then?
Yeah, like I'd say it's more. There was never one defined moment where I was like, yeah, I'm going to push all into this to make this happen. Then I want to go from being a coach to an online coach to being a traveling guy to being an app guy. None of that ever happened. Like it was just every single one of these big decisions where like partnering with my app guy now, I'm a business partner there to help push the app and develop it more. That was more just me out as being like, oh, the website's working well, but I feel like an app is probably where things are going to head, where a website's going to have a finite lifespan, whereas an app is going to keep up with the times. So where do I go from that? But it was also just more so what I wanted to give people as an experience was no longer viable for what I was currently doing. So a simple example is I remember when I was working in a gym, it was at a point where the experience that I knew my clients deserved, they weren't getting from me one-on-one anymore. Because like, you know what? I've been training you for 3 years straight. What are you getting from me being here? You're getting absolutely fucking nothing. I'm counting your reps and we're just talking. If anything, you're going backwards because we're wasting more time socializing than we are actually like doing anything productive.
I've actually had that.
It happens. Yeah. So you're like, you know what?
Times.
Let's cut back on your sessions. Like you're paying me well, pay me less well, but pay me more value. Like pay me and I'll start coaching you with programming. I'll start giving you just an email once a week. We'll check in once a month. We'll just catch up in person because you're still local. I'll oversee you when you walk into the gym here, but I'm not going to be hands-on with you. That gives me more time to be able to leverage more clients. We'll be able to work with other clients in person. But it came a bit to be because the experience I wanted to give was no longer feasible. And then when I was online coaching, because that's how I went to online coaching, and then doing that, I was like, people are asking me a lot about some of the hows and whys behind programming. I can't give that to them in an online coaching experience. That needs some kind of course. It needs some kind of workshop or some kind of educational experience. So I started doing workshops just with my clients to be able to learn what I do and said, hey, this is why I gave you this disgusting drop set. It's because of this physiological process. Is it necessary? No, but we're going to do it anyway because I fucking hate you. And that was it. But it was an educational experience. And it came out because I couldn't give them what I wanted with the current setting. And then people who couldn't come to events wanted that content. And I was like, well, the current capacity, I can't give you that experience. I need to create a website. And then I was like, people on the website, they want some kind of training application. I can't give them the training experience that I can envision for them via a website. I need an app. So it just sort of built up just by saying, well, what do people want from me, or what do I want to give people? Well, what can't I do right now? And then how do I go to do that? And then now the app is like, I spoke with Mark, my app guy, the other day.
Is it Mark Fox?
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
I've
so he's
heard
worked
about
with
him,
Joe Bennett. He worked with Jordan Peters over in the UK. He's worked with a lot of his people in the industry. So I got in touch with him through Joe Bennett, because he's a good friend of mine. And I was like, look, I know Mark is your app guy. Can you put me on with him? Because I thought he was very exclusive, and he was at the time, but he knew who I was and what I was doing. So he saw my vision. I was like, yeah, I want to help you with this. So he's been helping me out for the last 3 years now, maybe. And whenever we chat, it's like the levels and the layers that we're adding onto this app now. It's kind of scary to think about. Just where it's going, and to the point where it's growing beyond me, or it's growing beyond anything that we could have ever envisioned. And it's just because we're trying to say, what do we currently deliver to people? What else do we want to deliver to them? How do we do that? What do we need? And now it's just like we just invest as much as we can. Like, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we've surpassed maybe $1.5 to $2 million in investment on this app. It's like, how many not from day one, of course.
Yeah,
but it's like that's
sure.
the progression over a few years. It's like, well, how many apps have really got a couple of mil behind them as a fitness app? Not many. Like, they might have maybe 100K, maybe that's scary enough to put that down. But at that point, it's like, well, that's pretty cool to be able to say that we're doing that and we're creating technology. Like, I don't see myself anymore as a coach. I see myself more of what I do as marketing and technology. Yeah. That's what our space is now. All the content I create, it's marketing. Because I don't do any other marketing. It's just like, I've got to create exceptional content and learn more. So, I mean, the big turning point, I think what separates like maybe myself or some of the other people you mentioned from being just a coach, in inverted quotation marks there, to something that transcends, using your language, is I think it's a belief, or it's an understanding that, hey, I'm not just a coach, I'm not just a PT. And I never felt like that when I was a PT. Like, I know some people are like, I'm a PT, I'm a trainer, I'm going to just stay in my box and see what I do. I count reps, right? I charge saddlebag Sally for $5 sessions or whatever. It's like, well, I never saw myself like that. Or I never identified as a PT.
I was going to say,
or a coach or whatever.
Comes into that.
For me, I identify as someone who's a problem solver. I identify as someone who just is trying to find the truth or find an answer. I don't necessarily care about what space that is in. I don't care about what industry that is in. I just like solving problems. So what's the current problem? The current problem is I can't go around the world. The current problem is I can't give people the training experience they want, or I can't fit this need. How do I do that? And that will take you a very different direction to you identifying as I'm a PT.
I'm a coach.
I'm a coach. I'm a gym owner.
Coach.
Or I'm a business owner even. Even saying I'm a business owner, or I'm a podcast host. That's you can go very far with that. But when you start identifying beyond that, that's when you create a new space for yourself, because there is no handle for necessarily what I do. Like, the elevator pitch for what I do is I don't fucking know. It's like, I do too many things. Marketing and tech, maybe. I have an app. That's the 2-second soundbite. But you guys know it's more than an app. You guys know that what I do is more than that, but more than a gym, more than education. Because how many educators have what I do, or how many coaches have what I do? Not in an arrogant way, but more so just saying like, well, it's an undefinable thing.
It's outside the mold. It's literally all it is. Like, it's.
I think on a much smaller scale, we even feel that. Like, I remember for a long time, I didn't tell people that I was a personal trainer because it just didn't feel like that. Because we used to run semi-private. Now it's more online coaching. Like, yeah, if I want to be quick, I can say, oh, yeah, I'm a personal trainer. It's easier, but we're not, though, because we don't do that. But of course, early on, us making that distinction started turning ourselves in the direction we wanted to head. We don't want to do personal training. We want to do something different. It's not exactly like everyone else does, and it's going to be a bit beyond what we'd be doing if we were just personal training.
Absolutely. Like, I'm so glad you guys are doing this to this level. I think it's cool. I think it's it helps you guys. It pushes you to be like, hey, this is cool now. I know you're going to look back on this in the year and be like, man, that was fucking nothing to where we're at now.
we even
different levels to this game.
We came back from Queensland, and I think it was me and you, Jamie, but we were like, man, we're 20 episodes. This is our 23rd episode. It's like we're 20 episodes in, and we've just flown to Queensland. Yeah, we had a small sponsor get going. Thank you very much. That paid for some of the trip. Like, it was just like we would never have envisioned that within 20 episodes that was the opportunity. And now we're sitting here, and I've drawn so much inspiration from this chat, and especially that last little piece there. I'm glad I asked a selfish question, but it's just it's cool to see that when you just. All right, that's where I want to roll, and you just sort of roll and reinvesting. I like that. That's a big. Do you know who Mr. Beast is?
No, Mr. Beast.
You don't know Mr. Beast. You don't know Mr. Beast.
I know Mr. Bean.
No,
not Mr. Bean.
Not the same guy.
I would have thought you've got a bit of a YouTube algorithm sort of understanding and building
Mr.
it.
Beast.
You've got to find Mr. Beast, right? Man. He's the GOAT of YouTube. He's the number one dog. He's got 200, 300 million across all his channels, subs.
Well, that's messed up. that's a lot.
Wow. Yeah. All right.
Knowing what, you guys would know what goes into monetization on YouTube. That's a lot.
No. Yeah. He reinvests every single dollar.
Wow.
Yeah. He put $65 million into his YouTube channel last year.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. He's 23 years old.
ridiculous.
He's 23 years old. I can't believe you don't know who Mr. Beast is.
What does he do? What kind of stuff?
It's sort of like
Not our space of fitness.
No, not at all. It's sort of like fun game show, sort of like. One of them is if you put this, there's like 30 people with their hand on a Lamborghini. The last person on there gets the Lamborghini.
Right.
He gave away an island.
It's like challenges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like you probably won't be able to get into. I couldn't get into it. I tried to watch it.
You just watch it for like.
but it's a spectacle.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
So he recreated Squid Game, put $4 million into Squid Game, and his Squid Game got more views than the actual Squid Game
on Netflix.
That's
on
ridiculous.
Netflix. I can't believe you don't know Mr. Beast.
No.
But his whole idea is just
Homework.
Yeah. Get back to me with it. Yeah. You'll learn if you're still trying to work out this YouTube algorithm. Which I feel like everyone is. We're just playing. I like to say we're playing a game and no one knows the rules. You're just sort of like guessing things and like trying to work out the direction. Mr. Beast is a fantastic, but his whole thing is just reinvest. Like you're making money, you enjoy it, you want to keep going, you want to have a bigger impact. The only way you're going to do that is hire more people, get more better technology or whatever. Like push this thing, and it's just you've done it in your own world. And I love it. Absolutely love it.
I appreciate you
and
saying
I
that.
do. Thank you, because you're pushing us to go a little bit further as well.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Glad to hear. Like when I go traveling, one thing I was thinking of was, man, it'd be cool because I'm going to meet a few people over there. It'd be cool to do interviews. And then now seeing it set up, I'm like, fuck, I can't do this. I can't bring this on the road with me.
No, it's too big. You need a travel size. We've fucked up. We've got like the brick version of everything. Everything's heavy and large. But
it's
you need some
fancy,
roadies.
though.
you can get.
Nice.
You can get.
It's nice.
Yeah, it is nice. It is good.
It's good sound. I got you in my ear hole here. It's
You could get a travel size. If you only had probably 2 to 3 people, I reckon you could do a pretty decent travel size one.
all right.
It just sucks that we're all about the team. The team goes everywhere. We've got to take everyone.
Damn, team holding everyone back.
The team. The team pushing everyone forward.
Who are we cutting off?
Yeah. Charles, sick.
Charles is in here.
Took a sick day on the worst day, Charles.
No good.
I know. I'm so happy. I got the late sub in. This is it. Sorry,
You were meant to
Charles.
be here today.
I was meant
Well,
to be
he came
here.
to
I went to
Queensland.
Queensland.
He came to
Sorry.
Queensland.
Right, so you tag team it, right?
Yeah. We're trying to get to a point where all of us can get to America. That's our we want somebody to help us pay for flights to get the team to America and just make 10 podcasts. That's our first push for it.
Who's your hit list, or who do you want to see over there?
I would love Christian Guzman.
Yep.
Alpha Elite.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He's probably the person that I've drawn the most inspiration from for my whole career, personal development, professional development in that sort of nutshell. I think it's just
that new
amazing.
Alpha Land looks
Oh my god,
ridiculous.
It's fucked. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
With this gym, is there anyone, because obviously we've drawn inspiration from your gym and a lot of the things you've done here, was there a gym that you look to or a person that has done something similar to this to kind of give you some
nothing
inspiration?
like this.
No,
There's
really
nothing
no.
like this.
But you see a lot
I
of
thought that might be the answer.
Yeah, you see a lot of gyms like it now where there's a lot of more private spaces that are trying. There are a lot of, not just private spaces, but there are a lot of content-driven spaces now. Like people make a gym or whatever because they know that they understand the power of having a good quality space for social media purposes.
I think that's us.
Maybe.
No, it is. It
No,
definitely
it's
is.
not a bad
definitely,
thing.
definitely
It's a great thing. But yeah, back then I don't think I've been to a lot of cool private PT gyms or whatever, but nothing really like this light. I took the inspiration for that looking at the TV show Arrow. You know,
Yeah.
the TV show with
Yep.
Oliver Queen. He had his little arrow cave. He had one of these kind of big rings. I was like, that's a cool ring light.
cave.
I want that thing. It just looked nice. So a lot of it was just kind of things that I kind of like. Yeah.
Outside of the industry, you sort of got more inspiration.
Yeah,
from.
for sure. And I got the platform the way that I did. I wanted to get as big as I could because one thing I wanted to hit certain specifications for powerlifting or for Olympic lifting. But that was about it. And I thought, how am I going to make that fit? I don't know. Because, a 4x4 is big.
Get a bigger space.
Yeah.
We're going to need a bigger one.
There's some details in here. If you can't actually see, or the pads have got the Ganbaru
Everything.
logo in there, and then the Rolls Royce and hip
Custom,
extensions. I got a hard on for that.
Custom
That's
built
mad.
Atlanta stuff. Like it's actually
There's details.
Our potty is not going to do it justice. I'm sure you could just check out some of your content, and you've done big gym tours.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's really cool. We did a gym tour because you did a gym tour, and we shouted you out. I think we did.
Yeah. I remember seeing it.
Yeah. But ours is in the little algorithm, so it's yours. Yours is number
Nice.
1, and we're number 2. So ours is still getting
Nice.
like bled views. I'm like, that is.
Are you using
sick.
hashtags or anything like that?
Oh, you have to speak to the media guy. Don.
It makes a difference.
Louis Vuitton Don
Makes
down
like,
there.
out of all the algorithms, honestly, I'd say algorithm-wise, YouTube is actually probably the most transparent one. Like Instagram, they just fuck with you. TikTok, you can kind of crack it pretty easily if you know how to just put the words in. But YouTube is out there where they're actively saying, this is how you have the best chances of getting a good reach on YouTube. If you put these words in, if you look for these keywords or whatever, like, oh, okay, that's cool. And it kind of gets exhausting because, like, do you want to create content because you want to create content, or do you want to create content to hit keywords? And I think in that latter way, it makes you viral, but it's not good because it's not sustainable because you're always working. Yeah. Where you should just be able to shop. It's like, I want to talk about cheese today. Let's talk about cheese.
Fromage.
Yeah, fromage.
Fromage.
Get a good Gouda going. Even if you don't care, even if no one cares about it, if you care about it, then it's gonna do okay.
We'll leave it on one last question then. Who if you were to have a podcast, who would you go for? Who would be the number one person you try to? You said you're touring and you're going to see some people, but if you could meet one person and sit down and chat with
fluff
them.
it up. Top 3.
Top 3. All right, we'll give you some.
You got to give me something. I mean, so the people that I'm. Oh, this
doesn't even have to be in the industry. Just one.
Ooh.
Just one.
Give it industry, and then we'll steal his ideas.
Yeah, for sure.
Tony run is down.
Look, the easiest one that I think a lot of people would want to hear from would be The Rock.
Yeah.
Like he's just someone that's a very of course he's just cool. He'd be someone. But I would actually want to really sit down with different people who are really good and exceptional at understanding humans and understanding how to communicate. So a lot of just lower tier than The Rock, which is just about everybody. But
you've just insulted 7 billion people.
Every single person, they're like, what do you mean I'm not like The Rock? I could be 6'5" or whatever bajillion kilos it is of handsome man. But one person who I don't think I would actually be very good on a podcast with, but I'd love to have a conversation with, would be this woman, Brené Brown.
Yeah.
Where I think she'd be exceptional. I don't think I'd be at that caliber to be able to handle a conversation with her. I'd just be like, I lift weights. How are you? Oh my God, we're on the same couch together. I mean, there's her. There's a few different musicians I think would be really cool. I mean, I've already mentioned Dave Grohl. He'd be a cool guy just to chat with. One guy who I really used to look up to, who not so much anymore, not for any particular reason, but was Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart was actually the big driver behind a lot of my touring. Really? A lot of, like, a theme behind a lot of what I did was I read his book, his biography, I can't make this up, back in 2015 or so. And I was like on the cusp. I'd done a bit of touring around Australia. I was sitting pretty comfortable. Like, okay, I'm making good money. I'm able to reinvest in my business. I'm able to do what I want to do. But this is a pretty cushy, like, doing what I'm doing. I'm happy. And then I read his book, and I read all about just how he was always pushing himself and how he would go on the road for several years at a time trying to just make something for himself. And I thought, who am I to just sort of just sit in my laurels here and just kind of get lazy? The same deal with reading about like the Chili Peppers, like Anthony Kiedis' biography.
That's
Scar
a
Tissue.
crazy book.
Crazy story. But you remember, like, you were reading about it at the point where they were saying like they couldn't afford to go on tour. They weren't making that much money. This is like around the Californication era where they think like they're a pretty well-known band at the time. They should be making a fair bit of coin, but they can barely afford to go on tour to make more money. Like, they're struggling. I thought, well, fuck. If these guys are pushing themselves.
Kept going. Yeah.
And they keep going and they're not satisfied. Why am I, like, happy just doing a couple of dates around Australia and being like a presence in a gym or whatever? I've got to keep going.
Got to push.
So he would be a guy who would be fun to chat with. But yeah, I've actually never really thought it. And that's honestly a big reason I think why I don't have a podcast is I've never sat down or whether cared to or had the vision for it, but I never sat down to create any kind of thing really pulling me towards it. Being like, oh, it'd be really cool if I could sit down with Dave Grohl. Or it'd be really cool if I could sit down with The Rock. Like, I say that now to you guys, like, it'd be cool to do it. I wouldn't say no to it, have the opportunity. But to be perfectly honest, I'm not going to work to make that happen.
Yeah.
It's just not a priority for me.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
not something that I don't hold any of these people on this incredible thing of like, oh, I want to be you, man.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird, you know? Like I've had people come to me and be like, man, like I say it in a really nice, earnest way because they love what I'm like. I just want to be you, man. I'm like, bro, tone it down. You're stage 5 clinger right now.
Scare me, man.
couple of notches back. Yeah. Like you don't want to be me, trust me. But you do you, boo. But yeah, I don't know. Like some people, and I don't think it's a bad thing to be like, man, you are goals, or I want to do what you do. I think that's a really good thing to have, those aspirations towards what people have achieved or they've done. I've just never really had that I've never had that role model where I've been like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to be that person.
Yeah. You're drawing it from all over the...
Yeah.
And just sort of creating it yourself.
Yeah.
That's cool. I loved it.
Good question. I've got to think on that more.
That's all right. We'll stick with Kevin Hart. I rate Kevin Hart.
Yeah, for sure.
Kevin Hart is one funny man.
Yeah.
Say it with your chest. That's it. I think we're done. Unless you boys got anything left to say.
I think I'll do it.
No, that was great.
That was unreal. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
and keep
man.
going because you're making us keep going. So.
Thank you. You guys keep going because I mean, seeing this is like, yeah, I've got to step my game up as well.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.